rather than jumping on the hype train of saying that product is cool, product management is something people are getting into, I wanted to understand the nitty-gritties of the role. I went up to a few PMs within Ola and told them that, hey, this is something that I want to explore and see I can get into. Ola was my first job right out of college. I studied engineering in IIT Madras and then graduated in 2019. Then was the age when a lot of people were talking about the power of data and how machine learning is changing the world. That's where I took a role as a research engineer in the data science team of Ola. Was particularly working in the customer experience. So my role consisted of me using data to solve any of the customer experience problems. Within that, I can talk specifically about a project that I had. Just imagine yourself within a community where Bangalore has a lot of communities, right? And there are huge geographies. You book a cab from a particular place, and right where you book your cab from is a location that might not be accessible to your cab driver. Now within that, you would want to let the cab driver know where he has to reach in order to pick you up. And that's where we leverage data in order to understand when you are at a new location and there have been past rides from that community. We use that data in order to be able to judge from where this particular ride or new customer would be picked up from. And that's where we set the expectation between the driver and the customer, so that it's a good customer experience to understand. It reduces a lot of friction. You don't have the driver calling you to understand where he has to pick you up. You don't have the customer having to proactively call you to tell you where you have to come. The driver might come behind the society and there's no pickup point over there. So it reduces metrics like cancellation. It decreases the time from arrive to pick up, and that's where you're enhancing your customer experience through that. There were many other problems, but just wanted to give you a gist of how things were as an engineer using data to solve problems for customer experience at Ola. And about a year and a half into my role is where I reflected upon my strengths and weaknesses, and that's where I thought I might be doing better as a product manager, and just started looking upon roles within the organization. Ola that way was quite welcoming in terms of helping me with the transition. I was able to find a role within Ola itself, and that's where I switched from being a research engineer to an APM, an associate product manager within the driver onboarding and compliance team. At this point of time, I was put into a project with high stakes, and I think I had a great learning experience then. Again, I'll just touch upon a specific project that I did as an associate product manager at Ola, and I can talk more detail into how the transition also happened. But then this was around the start of second wave. We, I think, were a few months into launching Ola at London. And then after that, due to a few compliance issues, Ola's license was revoked. So you can understand the stakes over here. The projects that we were working on was to ensure that we tell London's court or the Transport Authority of London that, hey, Ola is capable enough of operating in London without seeing any compliance issues. So this was a zero error game, and I was put in a project where you had to ensure that all of the rides that were being taken in London were compliant according to their norms. Yeah, did a bunch of things in compliance and onboarding. Had to ensure that while we are seeing that we are compliant with London's norms, we are also being fair with the drivers over there, giving them a good onboarding experience to come and say that, hey, we are true business partners with Ola and we would want to start earning with Ola. And that's where it took us a good 7 to 8 months to get that project in place. And then just want to say that it helped reinstate our London operator license. That's where around, I think we had around 45,000 drivers who were partnering with us. Just felt great to be able to empower them to work with Ola and earn with us. Yeah, that's how my experience was at Ola. After that, I think I was there for about a year, and post that stint I switched to Zepto. First, I want to state a fact that me switching from engineering to PM does not mean that I do not like engineering. I think I still am in touch with a lot of engineering folks from Ola, and even in my new role at Zepto, I tend to correlate or understand their problems a bit more, which is also a bias that I'm trying to get rid of. Engineering as a field was very interesting, but while I was reflecting upon where my future lies, I was looking at two parameters. When I put in my effort, what field will give me the most return, in terms of me putting X amount of effort in XYZ field or ABC field, which is the field that will give me maximum return, which essentially made me reflect upon what comes to me more naturally. So that is where within Ola I was fortunate enough to be closely working with product managers. And rather than jumping on the hype train of saying that product is cool, product management is something people are getting into, I wanted to understand the nitty-gritties of the role. And that's where the PMs that I was interacting with, I would take the extra step to sort of see what goes on daily in their life. And at the start, frankly, there were a lot of things that seemed appealing to me, but as I spent more time understanding their role, there were also bits and pieces there that I had to be cognizant of that I would not enjoy the most. A few months after just being an observer of what a PM does, I went up to a few PMs within Ola and told them that, hey, this is something that I want to explore and see I can get into. And they were kind enough to sort of let me stretch my role from being just a research engineer to also taking up a few product responsibilities. And that's where whenever there was ideation for a product, they'd be like, hey, I remember you telling me about this, why don't you pitch in these conversations. When they were trying to manage multiple stakeholders, they would let some load off onto me, and I would have to see that everyone is sort of on the same page with what we're building, what is going to go live. And then even in the post release of the product cycle, where you are trying to analyze what is going good, bad with the product, I'd proactively take my hands on to doing some analysis and presenting insights from my own perspective. And that's where I understood the entire, at least 80 to 85% of the role. And while I reflected upon it day by day, I started liking it, and I did not question myself on whether or not leaving engineering would be a decision that I would regret. That's where I was sure. And also I started realizing that product management, the skills required in product management, a few of them came naturally to me. And the answer that I started with, the question that I started with, the answer presented itself. I sort of became confident that these set of skills are natural to me. These are the weaknesses that I have. If I put in this amount of effort over here, I think I can get into the top 5% or top 1% of product managers. And that perspective, I think, might be a direction that others might want to consider before making a switch. Rather than just going about what others are doing, just try to reflect on what suits you, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then spend some time putting yourself in the position and reflecting on how you feel about it, and then it'll be much easier to make a decision then.